Hey guys, Jerome here. So it's been about 24 hours since I got my Nexus 6P. I've had some time to go over the phone and I just wanted to give a couple more impressions, what I think about the performance, the camera, the speakers, just my initial thoughts after 24 hours. As far as build quality and design, I feel like the build quality is excellent on this phone. Huawei has done a great job on putting this phone together. Compared to previous Nexus phones, this really seems to be top of the class in as far as build quality and design is concerned. So I chose a 128 gigabyte Nexus 6P option in frost in white, and I feel like the mix of black, white, and silver, or even the chrome finish here, gives it a real classy design. I like, especially the back. I know a lot of people have maybe some concerns about the black visor on top. I know some people wanted to get the graphite version instead so that it kind of blends in with the back, but I don't know. I like the whole black and white contrast. I think it makes the phone look a lot more unique. Um, but I guess that depends on your preference. For me, I think it just makes it look different, kind of makes it stand out from other phones. I also like the fact that the white doesn't give any fingerprints, like it's not a fingerprint magnet. It doesn't feel slippery on the back, so it doesn't feel like I'm gonna slip, or the phone's gonna slip out of my hands or anything like that. It has a really good feel to it. I will admit though, this is a tall phone. It is taller than my Moto X Pure Edition, and I feel like to reach the top of the display, you'll probably need to use two hands or kind of adjust one hand to get to the top of the screen. But as far as width, I think the phone fits pretty well in the hand. It's thin enough that your palm can kind of just rest on the phone and reach from left to right. Again, it is a taller phone, so it might be hard to kind of just use one hand to get to the very top, but as far as holding it and making sure that it's solid in your hand, like it's not going to slip, I don't see an issue. I'm going to go ahead and continue to use this phone without a case like I have with my previous phones. I had a Nexus 6 and I never put a case on that. I tried to put a case on it and the thing was even bigger and just it didn't work for me. But for this, I feel like it's the perfect size width-wise. I understand that it's taller because it accommodates the front-facing speakers, but that's really not a big issue to me. It's more display, and for the most part, I'm not reaching for the top of the display every time. So here are the few things that stick out to me the most when using my 6P. The first thing is the fingerprint scanner or the fingerprint reader. I will admit I'm still getting used to the fingerprint reader. A lot of times I find myself pressing the power button and then swiping up, kind of just force of habit, and then putting my PIN code in to get into the phone. It's nice that when a phone is not even unlocked, I don't even have to press the power button at all or the lock button. I can just put my finger on there and it'll unlock the phone for me. That is something that I'm sure I will get used to in time. For now, I still find myself unlocking the phone and swiping up, but the more I use it, the more I just end up putting my fingerprint on here, and it works really well. Actually, it's very fast and it's very accurate. Like the other reviewers I've watched said, it works almost every time. And I actually use both of my index fingers. I use both of my index fingers so I can unlock with my right hand, and I put it on my left hand too, so I can unlock the phone with my left hand. And almost every time it works. It's a really great feature, and it's as time's going on, or as time has gone by today, I'm realizing how nice it is to be able to unlock your phone without putting a PIN code in. I am liking the display on this phone a lot. This phone actually defaults to a saturated display. You could call it an oversaturated display. What's nice about it though is you can actually switch the color mode on here to go to a more accurate or a more natural display. The only problem with that is to get into that natural, like accurate display, you have to go into the developer options, and there's a mode called picture color mode, I believe, and you have to select sRGB to turn that on. And once you do, then it goes to a more natural looking display, and that's great. I love it. I don't know why they kind of hid the setting or why they put it in developer options, because it's not easy to get to, especially if you're a new user and you don't like that oversaturated display. And so to get to that natural display, you kind of have to go through a couple steps to get that display to switch. Another thing too is I've noticed actually when I let this phone die from, when I let the battery drain and I charged it up again, as soon as it turned on, it defaulted back to that oversaturated display. So I had to go back into developer options and pick the sRGB natural color display again. I'm not sure why Google chose that option, why they made it default to just that, but I'm sure they have their reasons. But it's nice that I can at least switch it back. I wish that once I switched it to sRGB, it would stay that way, but I can't complain too much on that. I've said this in my past videos, and so for people who have been watching me for a while, they know that speakers are a big deal to me. One of the reasons I have a Moto G, a Moto X, and now a Nexus 6P is because of the front-facing speakers. The Moto G has one front-facing speaker, but it's still a front-facing speaker, and speakers are a big deal to me. I mean, yeah, I also have the Motorola's and the Nexuses because they have a very stock version of Android. Well, Nexus has a pure version of Android, but the speakers make a big difference for me. And on the Nexus 6P, they're no different. The speakers on here are actually very loud. Motorola does a great job at speaker volume, speaker quality, and the speakers sound really good out of Huawei's Nexus 6P. Now, I did like a kind of unscientific test where I had the Moto X Pure Edition and the Nexus 6P right next to each other, and I was using Spotify and switching back and forth listening to audio volume, and the Nexus 6P actually sounded louder, but it didn't sound as rich or as full as the Moto X Pure Edition. And not by a lot either. It just didn't sound... The Nexus 6P sounded a little muddier than the Moto X Pure Edition, but it did sound louder. So it's kind of give or take on that one. Again, it was an unscientific test. I actually think I'm going to try to invest in like one of those decibel meters and get an accurate measurement on what phone is louder. Just because a phone is louder too doesn't mean that the speakers are better. It means it's louder, yeah, but it doesn't mean that the overall richness and like quality is better. But again, I'll do a little more testing. I've only had the phone for 24 hours, so as soon as I get a little more time with it, I'll let you guys know. Oh, I did have to add that I haven't noticed any kind of when I put the phone on full volume, I haven't noticed any kind of cracking or like crackling or like any real noticeable hissing as far as notifications go or when my phone rings. As opposed to my Moto X Pure Edition, yeah, the speakers are great on the Moto X Pure, but on notifications, especially when I have the volume at full blast, there is a little crackling, and it's one of those things that does frustrate me, and I haven't noticed that on the Nexus 6P, so that's great to see, or great to hear, actually, that it doesn't have that. Now, this one's going to be obvious, but USB Type-C is awesome. It's awesome to have. The first time I plugged it in, I was so happy that I didn't have to fumble on whether or not it goes right side up or the opposite way. I just plug it in either way and it works. So now at nighttime I can plug it in blindly, or not even at nighttime, I can just plug it in blindly. I grab for it, plug it in, I'm good to go. It'll start charging or connecting to a computer or whatever. I can't wait until they start making battery packs with USB Type-C connectors or that'll accommodate the power amperage or whatever to get the Nexus 6P going with its fast charging. Now I do have to go back to the Moto X Pure Edition just to tell you what I've missed on that phone in the last 24 hours compared to my 6P. For those that don't know my previous phone, I've been using the Moto X Pure Edition now for maybe about 7 weeks, maybe even almost 2 months. And so I have to do a comparison because that has been my favorite phone, for the last 2 or so months. But the things that I miss most right now about the Moto X Pure Edition are the gestures, and actually the number one thing I miss the most are the IR sensors. No longer can I take my 6P and wave my hand. I can't wave my hand over the front of it to get notification content. For me to do that, I can either kind of move the phone because I think it has like a motion sensor to see if I have a new notification, but it just doesn't work as well as Motorola is offering. Typically now for the Nexus 6P, if I want to see if I have a notification, I usually have to pick up the phone and then I'll unlock it with my fingerprint, with the fingerprint reader, and it's just very convenient to have the Moto X Pure Edition laying on a flat surface, wave my hand over it if I don't want to pick up the phone and see if I have any new notifications or check the time. So I do miss that the most. I mean, I'm going to try to live without it using the 6P. So again, in a few days or in a week or two, we'll see where my opinion lies on which one I'm going to ultimately end up with. Another thing that I miss with gestures is the flashlight. Chop twice to turn on and chop twice to turn off. The Nexus 6P doesn't offer that. I need to do a little research and see if there is another third-party app that can get the flashlight going quicker, because for now I still have to unlock the phone, swipe down twice to get into the quick settings, and then turn on the flashlight. And not to mention, then I have to do that again to turn off the flashlight. So hopefully there's an app. If you guys know one that you guys can comment on, please feel free to let me know so I can try it out. But that is something that I already missed, that I can't get my camera on that quickly. And then the third gesture that I do miss a lot is the double twist. The double twist to turn the camera on. I'm so used to doing that, but what I like about the Nexus 6P is I can, what they did is on the power button or the lock button, you can press this twice to, well, it didn't work here. You can press this twice to turn on the camera. There you go. So, and actually, I like that. I actually like having that here. So I can hold the phone sideways, press this twice, and the camera will activate. And it actually feels pretty natural. I mean, in some ways, it kind of feels more natural than double twisting my wrist to turn the camera on. So I'm glad that Google decided to add that feature in there. I'm happy that at least that's there to get the camera going, because camera is one of those things. The camera app is one of those things that a lot of people just turn on. You never know when you need it, and it's nice to know I can just double tap or double press on that to get that going. Speaking of the camera app opens pretty fast. Taking a picture is just as fast, and I haven't noticed any kind of lag or stuttering with it yet. Now, I haven't done a lot of testing yet, snapping pictures, so maybe in a few days I will do a more thorough review on how I feel about the camera. Again, guys, I am not a professional photographer by any means, but I would like to test it out. Actually, I want to see if a friend of mine who has the 6S might do kind of like a side-by-side comparison, just to see what it's like in low light situations or even in bright light, and kind of just do a side-by-side test. So look out for that. Again, I'm not the best at explaining picture stuff or what looks best. For me, as long as it's not blurry and the colors look pretty accurate, I'm happy with the pictures. I have, however, played with the video camera more so than just taking pictures. And one thing I noticed right away is that the phone focuses really fast. And actually, I can kind of turn on the video camera and swing my arm around, and so it'll show different varying degrees of light, and it seems to find its focus pretty quickly. That's really nice. It's nice to know that I have a camera that can focus like that, and I think that's the laser focus feature that's in there that's doing that. But again, with more time, we'll really see how this ends up working, and as far as quality and everything goes. But I'm excited to test it out. I mean, video and picture taking is still important to me, and now that I've been using phones to do all my video recording, it'll be nice to have another top-end phone that can kind of help me out take more video or record more video and do more editing and all that kind of stuff. I will say though, my favorite feature so far as the camera goes is the slow motion. For some reason I've had that option on past phones and I never really used it, but maybe because I've been doing YouTube videos lately, I find that the most fun. I keep thinking of ways to do new slow motion videos, and hopefully I have some friends that are willing to do some crazy things, not crazy, but you know, just kind of do things that are fun to use the slow motion camera. I do wish though that, I mean, it's great that they do 240 frames per second now, 240 frames per second now at 720p. I do wish that they offered 1080p, kind of just the same competition with the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, but I mean, it's still really good. And actually, I also love the fact that audio is included now. It kind of gives like a better experience in slow motion. You know, I posted one yesterday and just of me spinning a quarter and that quarter hitting the wood floor. I don't know, it just seems a lot cooler. Like it gives a better experience overall. That's the best way I could put it. But I really like that feature. I'm thinking of other ways I can incorporate that into some other videos, but I love using it, and I'm excited to keep doing more things with that. I also did my first battery test on the Nexus 6P, my first 0% to 100% test, where I drained the phone completely and it shut off, and then I plugged it in and I charged it all the way up to 100%. So in 15 minutes, in about 15 minutes, I got, in 15 minutes I got to about 20%. In 30 minutes, I got to almost 40%. I think it was 39%. In 45 minutes, I got to 60%. So 0 to 60 in 45 minutes, if you want to put it in car terms. In about an hour, it got up to 78%. And for a fully charged phone from 0% to 100%, it did it in about an hour and 35 minutes or 95 minutes. My Moto X Pure Edition charges faster than that. I was able to get my Moto X Pure Edition from 0 to 100 in an hour and 17 minutes, which is about a 20-minute difference, but the Nexus 6P also has a bigger battery. So we're talking about 3,450 milliamp hours versus 3,000 milliamp hours on the Moto X Pure Edition. So 450 more milliamp hours on this. So it kind of makes more sense why it would take a little longer to charge. I will say too that the 6P battery is probably going to outperform my Moto X Pure Edition. I feel like I've been using it pretty heavily today, and I can see this going for probably 16 to 20 hours and getting about maybe 4 to 4.5 hours of on-screen time, probably even more. I mean, I don't know if I can actually push 5 hours of on-screen time the way I use my phone, because I use it really heavily, but I can see myself using or getting up to at least 4.5 hours of on-screen time, and that's a big plus for me. Anytime I'm going, and you know, like with my Moto X Pure Edition, I was getting about 3 hours and 15 minutes to 3 hours and 45 minutes of on-screen time on the on a cellular network, closer to 4 hours of on-screen time just using Wi-Fi solely. But it's still early. I haven't really tested to see how the battery life goes, but I will update you guys on what I get. But I'm guessing that I'll probably get between 4 and 4.5 hours of on-screen time, and if that's what I can pull from it, I'll be pretty happy. If there's one thing that I can knock the battery on the 6P about, it would be the fact that it has USB Type-C, and the power brick that it came with is the only power brick, or is the only kind of power that will work to fast charge the phone. So if I want to take advantage of that fast charging, I pretty much have to carry that power adapter with me at all times. So I'm hoping sooner or later a manufacturer will come up with something that will accommodate the power requirements to do fast charging on the 6P. So that's not really a knock on the battery, that's just more or less technology trying to catch up to where the 6P is at the moment. And finally, guys, just some quick notes. These are things that really shouldn't be surprising, but I want to talk about it anyway, since I just wanted to do a quick 24-hour review or impression. Performance on here is solid. I've had my Moto X Pure Edition, but it's not like I'm using the 6P and it's blowing the Moto X Pure Edition away. You know, surfing the web with Chrome, using Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of stuff works well. I can have multiple apps open, multiple pages open. I haven't noticed any kind of lag or stuttering, so it's pretty solid. Again, I'm not doing kind of like intense app use or anything that's like pretty much gouging out the processor, so it's hard for me to speak in terms of performance because I don't do the benchmarking stuff. Like, maybe one day I'll run those numbers, but you know what, for me, my performance is whether or not I experience lag using Chrome or Facebook or, you know, whatever app. I'm not doing intense kind of things, and for the most part, I think a lot of the people who watch my videos don't do that either. They just want a good performing phone that isn't going to lag on them or like freeze on them when they're just doing everyday things. And I haven't noticed that at all on the 6P. So far so good with that. And then again, it's a Nexus, so the phone has no bloatware. I mean, it has Google apps, you know, if you want to call that bloatware, but for the most part, most of the Google apps that are preloaded onto the operating system, I use. I'm happy with them. I have no complaints. It's a pretty clean, minimalist phone. And then again, I've said this in the past, if you want to load it up with a bunch of other apps or skins, then that's up to you. But you know, this comes with Marshmallow. Marshmallow seems like a really good refinement of of Lollipop. So I haven't had a chance to really test out all the new features on it, but you know, it's working well. I'm happy that I'm on the latest version, and I'm happy that I'm going to continue getting the fastest updates. So you know, in terms of that, that's why I buy a Nexus phone, so I have the cleanest, you know, most purest form of Android. Anyway, that should be it, guys. You know what, if you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. I'll try to answer as much as I can. You know, I'll be playing with the phone a lot more. I'll probably get a lot more in-depth with the camera. Again, I don't know the most about camera stuff, but I'm really getting into that, and hopefully I can put a better perspective for you guys. So anyway, until the next one, guys, take it easy.